Welcome to
SciTech.
No SciTech, I'll get to you in a minute. This is Goldfish on Gaming, and today we're going to be discussing this game, K240, or K240, or K240. I was never quite sure what the official name was, but me and my mates called it K240, and that's what stuck. A game that was released by Gremlin Graphics back in 1994, and was the sequel to Utopia, which was released on PC and SNES, but this game was an Amiga exclusive, which I played on this bad boy back in the day. I was actually introduced to it by a good friend who couldn't quite work out how to play it, and he knew that I was a big fan of Settlers and those type of games, and so lent me a copy and told me to come back to him once I'd worked it out, and I was hooked from the beginning. Its mix of 4X strategy games, RTS, the building of multiple asteroids, building of fleets and missiles, just it had everything that I was a fan of back then. And so I had to get myself a copy as soon as I could, and this is my copy from back then. The game started with an incredibly atmospheric and tone-setting intro, which didn't really do much to explain the game or even hint at what the game was about, but it worked so well, and that is where we're going to start today. You'd think for a crew that were about to die, they would have emoted a little bit more. It's like, warning, we're being destroyed. Click. There we go. Alarm off. But with it over, we're at the main menu, where we can toggle sound effects and speech on and off, and this is also the menu we'll return to if we want to save. But what we can do from here is select one of the 6 different scenarios, which are defined by the race you play against. Now the races are actually really quite distinct. You have these bird-like aliens, have a whole bunch of reptile-looking ones, all the way up to ones that look like vampires, as well as plants. Yeah, you're fighting sentient plants. And each of the different races is your difficulty level. Selecting one of them, you go straight into the game. This is the era of very little or no tutorials. If you want to know how to play the game, you better read the book. But thankfully, the sectors are roughly randomised each time you play, so there is a bit of uniqueness every time you play the same race. Now I have to give a shout out to the UI for this game. It's not often I point it out, but K240 has a wonderfully designed UI. You can right click to bring up the core menu, and from there you can drill into a number of sub-menus, but some take you to a more detailed screen straight away. Now what the game allows you to do is to extract or pin these buttons to the side of the screen. All you have to do is hold the mouse button down. This gives you pretty much a customizable UI, which is quite unique back then and still pretty unique today. It allows you to really make your screen your own. The bulk of the game is constructing buildings on asteroids. Each of the buildings give you some resource, or take some resource and give you some ability. This is all done in a sort of quasi-real time, where days tick by and each building takes X number of days to build. But there's no turns or anything, so it is effectively real time. And I hope you're patient, because they can take quite some time to build, unless you use cheats. So on most asteroids you're going to be wanting to build accommodation blocks for your staff, power plants so they've got electricity, as well as trying to provide the basics such as air, water and food. But there's other buildings that will give you additional security, medical centres, or even try and reduce the amount of radiation, as all these things will affect how long your people live. If there's too much radiation, your people will die at a faster rate, and it's quite possible to lose an asteroid but no longer have anyone alive on it anymore. Now you can't just put down buildings straight away. The game has a manual way of assigning funds to different areas. You go into the money screen and then you can actually give each of the different areas funds for them to work through. And when they run low, the game will tell you. This allows you to sort of prioritise what you're wanting to do and make sure you don't use up all your cash. Now through the course of the game you'll be sending out your scout ships and setting up sensors on your asteroids, and you'll end up detecting other ones.
Asteroid discovered.
And then you can send your transporter over to that asteroid as long as it's not occupied and take it over. And that's how you spread yourself out through the game. Now it's pretty much advisable to just try and capture every single asteroid you come across. Now while some of them might not give you too much in the way of ores, they can be useful for other reasons, and it also means that your enemy can't get them as well. Now most of the time when asteroids lose all their ore or it gets mined out, they would be more or less useless, apart from the few that you would be building ships and missiles and that sort of thing on. But there is a few ways that these asteroids remain useful. The first isn't really documented, but a number of quite clever gamers have worked out that you gain credits for each asteroid that you own per day. You'll also gain credits per personnel you have per day. So if your numbers are reasonably high, then you can continue to get credit, as the only other way to make money is to sell your ore to the transporters that arrive. Now the game will tell you when they're arriving, and you can also find out through one of the buildings. If you're currently at the asteroid that it'll arrive at, you will know when it arrives. Now I'll give a quick epilepsy warning here because this is pretty bright and loud. Yep, that transport's arrived. And it'll do the same effect when it leaves. Now this used to send my old Amiga monitor crazy. The screen would bounce around all over the place. It really did not like it when they arrived. So we've got an idea of what we're going to be doing and building up these asteroids, but one of the X in the 4X genre is exterminate. so we're going to have to take out some enemies here. We have a couple of options to do that. The first is to build ships, and this again is actually quite forward thinking, that you can design your ships to an extent. You get the basic designs, but they have a number of hard points on them, and then you can assign which weapon or shields or any other tech that you can get to them. Now these will range from ship to ship weapons as well as ship to ground, as you can use them to directly attack asteroids as well as enemy fleets. And you're going to be wanting to build up fleets because the enemy will be sending them against you, or at least trying to use them to defend themselves against yours. You can only build small ships directly on your asteroid, because they have to be launched from the hangar. If you want larger ships, you're going to have to build a space station, which again allows you to customize it. So you can use your space station to protect you, and from your space station you can build the larger ships. Now, as we've seen, we've only got a limited number of buildings and ship designs and weapons to start off with. To get more of them, we need to visit SciTech.
Welcome to SciTech,
which is this game's equivalent of a research tree, except basically you just pay to get the blueprint. Now in an interesting twist, you don't get the blueprint straight away, you have to wait for the next transport to arrive to get it. So it can actually be really useful to keep checking on when the next transport's going to arrive and quickly buy your blueprints then, so you don't have to wait too long. You can also build missiles. Now these aren't customizable, but they're generally cheaper to make in large quantities than ships. And then when you've got enough of them, you aim them at your enemy asteroid and you launch. Which can be quite a sight, seeing them all rise up out of the missile silos. Normally you wouldn't get to see the direct results of the missile strike. You can build spy satellites which you can launch at your enemy's asteroid as well, so you can see your missiles hit or not, as the missiles have a percentage chance of actually hitting your enemy. This is mostly based on distances, so the closer you are, the higher chance they're going to hit, which can be annoying, but also can be used to your advantage. You and your enemy can also build anti-missile pods if you bought the technology from SciTech. If you've gone really far into the game and you've actually managed to get some of the much rarer ores, you can build a missile that, if it hits, that asteroid is destroyed, which is incredibly expensive to make and risky because it can be destroyed, but a one-hit kill is always good. There's no diplomacy in this game, so there's no winning through talking. It's all destroy, destroy, destroy. And I mentioned that there was a couple of things you could do with your asteroids when they were all used up. And one of them is to put an engine on them and effectively fly them into your opponent, as there really isn't any recourse against that, apart from just destroying it with one of the mega missiles. This is definitely a slow but very enjoyable game, as I always just used to love booting it up and just sitting there, chipping away at my enemy, building up my asteroids and my fleets, and looking forward to the ensuing explosions and attacks. Now this game also had a sequel called Fragile Allegiance, which was PC only, which you can actually get on GOG these days. So if you're interested in playing K240 but don't have an Amiga setup, then Fragile Allegiance is probably your best bet, as it is a pretty decent sequel. It's taken all the good ideas from K240 and expanded on them, including adding a sandbox mode, which is sorely lacking from K240. What was also lacking was music. I've actually been playing the music from Utopia, which had some, as you can tell, really decent tracks. K240, on the other hand, is very quiet, which, okay, matches the sort of space theme, but for an Amiga title with no music, it just doesn't feel right. The box had a really good manual in it, nice and thick, lots of great pictures, as well as in-depth talks on how to play the game and what everything did. And I've always been a sucker for a good manual. But as we saw, there's no in-game tutorial, and the game can be quite complex. as we can tell by the fact that I got lent the game in the first place, because my mate couldn't work it out. And it turns out that Gremlin realised this and decided to remedy it. And the way they did it was by making a VHS tape with a video tutorial that was narrated by the lead developer, Graham Ing. Now unfortunately I have been scouring the internet to try and find a copy of this, and not had any luck so far. I've even spoken to the lead developer and artist to see if they had copies of it still, and unfortunately they don't. So if you have a copy of this VHS, please could you either digitize it or get hold of me and I will do it for you and get it put online, because I would love to see this video. So that was K240. Not the prettiest of Amiga titles, but so much strategy, so much gameplay. It's unrivaled on the platform. And that's saying a lot, as Amiga has some incredible games. I will always thank my mate who introduced me to this. And so, until next time, I've been the Goldfish. And this has been Goldfish on Gaming.